You get a sense with the new Mazda CX-80 that they really want to help you and your family get a decent mobility solution. One aspect of that is the fact that even the entry-level version in Ireland is really highly spec'd, and you can get it in a plug-in hybrid or a 3.3 six-cylinder diesel, and they don't charge you extra if you want 6 or 7 seats. So on the surface, so far so good. Let's take a look at the rest of the car here on Nobby on Cars. This is essentially a larger version of the Mazda CX-60, although the shoulders on this, when you know the rest of the length of the car, just kind of feels a little stronger. I love how high it comes up. It's got a really big nose on the front. By European standards, this is a big car. By American standards, where this is also on sale, it's a small car. Really crisp white LED lights in the front, a huge unmistakable Mazda nose. This colour is called Melting Copper, which sounds like a really sweaty guard, but actually it's a lovely colour. This is not a small car, it's 5 millimeters short of 5 meters long. I mean, it's got to have all this extra space to squeeze in an extra row of seats and a huge boot if you're not using the extra row, or in this car's case, if it's spec'd with 6-seat captain chairs, 1714 millimeters tall and almost 1.9 meters wide if you exclude the mirrors. You can get a multitude of different size alloys in the car. These are 20-inch, they're black, offsets the colour nice. Not always a fan of black alloys, but in this car, it kind of works. Towing capacity is 2.5 tonne and unbraked at 750, but you can get roof boxes on the roof with the roof rail. So it really is a family car everywhere you look at it. On the rear, it might be a little bit more controversial. Is it a shape, kind of a curvy shape that everybody likes, or are people a little bit split? Really high shoulder line again for the rear lights, a wiper, not a huge boot spoiler, probably for the best because visibility out of this rear glass window, particularly when you have the third row headrest up, is quite limited. This is an all-wheel drive vehicle, so all-wheel drive on the inscription down here and Sky Active. And you can sweep your foot under and open the boot if your hands are full, just like that. And it actually works, which is always lovely first time. The CX-80 has a great size boot if you're not using the rear seat, 687 litres, and again, more signs they've thought of you and your family and perhaps designed by people who have kids. Plug-in options include actual power sockets, 12 volts. You can easily lift these seats into place. It's literally simple as that. Headrest goes up and you are in. Also in the rear area, you get a USB-C charging port, some drinks holders. We'll check out the actual room in the back there in just a second. There is space underneath here for your charging cable, and the parcel shelf also fits neatly at an angle. I've never seen that before, tucked away down here. So certainly you're going to be in a good space as long as you don't always need those rear seats. When you do pull it up, it does of course get a little bit more compact in the boot. You'll still fit maybe 3 or 4 shopping bags in here. Carry-on suitcases, perhaps not, just the way the angle of the seat comes back at you. It is a relatively faff-free manoeuvre to get these seats to let people in the back or whatever. The roof height really comes down quite low, so you smack your head off that easily enough, and I'm not particularly tall. Move this bench back and forward, and then to get access to rear passengers, this tilts forward and pushes forward even more. So there is a huge element of easy entry going on. Another great feature of the car is how wide these rear doors open. Not quite 90 degrees, but not far off it. Getting in and out, that bit is relatively easy, but actually just fitting humans in here is difficult. Now, Mazda have been very transparent in this. They said if you're below 1.7 meters, you'll have a whale of a time back here. And they're saying, well, if you're taller than that, maybe the other seats up front are more for you. So you can stop these seats here, give yourself a bit of knee room, you can pull them back and they lock into place. That's all easy to do. Drinks holders, as I mentioned, and the sunroof doesn't come anywhere near the back here for roof height, so people back here feel a little bit in the dark, but at least they'll have a little bit of air because there are air vents on the side of the mouldings here. No Isofix back here either. Things are naturally a lot more comfortable up here. You have these two individual rear captain's chair seats, their own individual armrests. You can get a standard bench on this, of course, as well. There's no extra charge, as I mentioned, for that. Drinks holder down here, you can tuck that away, so you can actually, smaller kids and stuff can walk through into the back via this gap as well. Your own climate control, heated seats, USB-C charging, back of the seat pockets. You have blinds for kids to keep them happy, and you'll be pleased to know the roof does come all the way back here and it opens, which is nice. When you're paying all that money for a panoramic roof, it's nice that it actually opens. Tons and tons of rear leg room and space for feet, so really space is no problem in this mid-section of the CX-80. I'm really on board with Mazda's interior. They combine physical buttons with screens, air-cooled seats in this really high-spec model. They're also heated, and the heated steering wheel, they all come as standard. Some differences in the higher spec is you get an electrically adjustable seat in this particular trim, but then in the entry you've got to manually do it, but it still has all those heated option bits. And there's a split armrest down here for storing things. I actually have a drone down here, and there's still space for other bits. Same down here. Automatic shifter, just it's kind of small and discreet, but still gives you a sense of kind of old school vehicles. I like that. An odd place to put the hazard light, as my daughter found this morning, because she was trying to change the tune and hit the hazard lights with your arm, because it's up here. It's also a sensor here that will give you an idea of the best possible seating position for you. Now you can obviously manually do this, but it's just how they like to do things in Japan, and kind of work out your size from that sensor. I think the materials are lovely. I've said often that I think Mazda are doing interiors that are finished nearly as good as Lexus. Some people disagree with that, but you can obviously feel free to let me know. The jog wheel does most of the heavy lifting for you. This screen isn't a touchscreen when you're on the move. For safety purposes, you use the jog wheel to do that. There's no needles anymore, but you get the digital display that kind of suggests that they are. You can charge the hybrid battery while you're using the engine, so that will use a bit more fuel, but you can do that. A lot of PHEVs don't let you do that anymore. Dictate whether you want it to start up in EV mode always, or just have the combination, because you're kind of hanging on to that range as best you can, because it's not exactly massive. I think you're talking 40 kilometers real world, maybe 30 miles if you're watching this in the UK. But it is a nice place to sit. Fixtures and fittings are lovely. Mazda have put one button down here to turn off all of the safety beeps. I wish everyone else would take a leaf out of their book. You get a wireless charger in this vehicle also, except every time I put it in there, it opens up my wallet and my cards for some reason. Not the only vehicle to do it, but I don't know why it does it nonetheless. So I like it up here. You might think it's quite black and dark, some offsetting of that by copper strips and stuff and the stitching in the cabin, but overall it feels premium. When I first had a look at this car, some people had commented on the fact that it was a little bit jumpy and jerky in hybrid mode. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be in comments, but that's YouTube comments for you. But nonetheless, it can hesitate to come on the power fully from EV mode, and when you're moving away from a set of lights, there's kind of a clunky feeling to it. Not all the time, but sometimes. It's almost 2 seconds quicker to 100 kilometers an hour than the 3.3 diesel is. Now, I've driven that diesel on an epic Mazda trip around Morocco. We did over 1,200 kilometers. We drove it like, well, let's not get into it, but it only used 2 tanks of fuel, and it returned fairly decent fuel efficiency. This is about 7.5 litres per 100 kilometers if you charge it. If you don't, you're talking anywhere around 12, 13, 14 litres per 100 kilometers. So often I'm driving an EV or non-EV and you're trying to remember which is the metrics for it again. So it's not a massively quick car. I like the diesel is the torquier, sounds better version. But you know, most people, it just won't make any sense to go for that version with the additional VRT and all the extra charges on it. So, you know, this is still quick. It's got 300 odd brake horsepower. It just doesn't feel, you know, urgent, if that's the best word to really describe it. It's just fine. Now, Mazdas are always tuned a little bit firm to give you a driving enjoyment aspect. This car, it's a 7-seater or a 6-seater, so it's hard to make a car of this size handle particularly well, especially for this money. So it doesn't really like fast corners or fast roundabouts. It's kind of for cruising along. Now, it will still handle, it's just there is body roll. And you can kind of live with it if you're driving the car by yourself. You might get complaints from other people telling you to slow down otherwise. The steering is also relatively light, so manoeuvring around should be easy enough for you, because there is no doubt some people are going to feel, whoa, it's almost 5 meters long. Is it a big car to manoeuvre around parking spaces and stuff? It can be, but the camera that you get, the 360 camera, again, check trims. This is the Hamura. Then you've got Takuma, you've got Takuma Plus, Hamura Plus. You've got the entry level, which is still very, very high spec in Ireland, actually. Some models will have head-up display. As I mentioned, some will have the adjustable. But they're only subtle enough tweaks. On the Mazda website, you can drop down the car you're looking at versus higher spec, and you can see the comparison. And really, there's not a huge amount of difference, even when you're spending more money. So I think entry level, particularly in this car, is more than enough. The 6 and 7 seater market, it is a crowded space. There's lots of options out there, which is a good thing, and you know, maybe that's why videos like this are helpful, to try and distill it down, because there are so many options. I think if you can jump to the price of it, it's really, really nice. It's a relatively refined way to get around and get your family around. That said, if you could afford to go for the diesel, that would be my choice, having lived with that for 1,200 kilometers. I'm also seeing quite a few of these around the place, so people are definitely buying them. And if you're after something that feels premium, it's good for the family, yeah, it's a little bit firm, so test it and check that out and see what you think yourself. But overall, space-wise, I think it's been brilliant for the dog, the kids, and everything else in between. Mazda CX-80 offers an awful lot of value when you look at the standard spec, the fact that it's 6 or 7 seats from about 62,000 euro. It's in and around the same price as offerings from Skoda and VW and many, many others. It's more expensive than the 5008 in electric or hybrid form, but it has just a lovely sense of presence about it in this colour, the interior. It's just it's an alternative, you know, a less obvious alternative perhaps to lots of people. All that said, the battery is quite small, and the range then in turn is also quite low. Compared to the new Kodiaq, the upcoming Tayron, we also have the Tiguan, and you've got just a multitude of PHEV options already out there that will do a lot more range on a single charge, because they have 25 kilowatt hour batteries. This is in and around 17. I was able to charge it really cheaply at home on my Omi charger. I just love how you can select the car, because I'm driving different cars all the time, so as long as they have a plug, you can select the car. It'll tell you how much it'll cost to charge it. Very, very handy. But as a little left to centre 6 or 7 seater alternative, you could do a lot worse than this CX-80. Let me know what you think of the car in the comments down below. Like and share the video. Maybe help grow the channel by subscribing. We're getting close to 50,000 subs now, and I'd really appreciate you considering subscribing if you aren't already. Thank you very much for watching. See you on the next one.